The apartment was quiet, almost too quiet. The kind of silence that didn't comfort, but pressed down heavy on the chest, reminding Emily of everything missing. Security, stability, peace of mind. She sat alone at the small kitchen table, a single bulb flickering weakly above her head. Its light spilled across the cluttered surface, unopened bills, a nearly empty jar of peanut butter. A crumpled note from her landlord reminding her rent was overdue. Again, her phone lay in front of her, its screen glowing faintly in the dimness. Emily's hand shook as she scrolled through her messages. Her thumb hovering over her sister's contact. She hadn't wanted to do this. She had spent weeks convincing herself she could handle it all. Double shifts at the diner, walking everywhere to save on gas. Cutting her own meals short so her daughter could eat. But tonight, as she glanced at the bare fridge and listened to the sound of her 7-year-old daughter's gentle breathing from the next room, Emily realized she couldn't keep up the act any longer. Her daughter Lily had gone to bed hours ago. Tucked under a blanket decorated with fading cartoon characters, she had smiled and said, "Don't worry, Mommy. Tomorrow will be better." The innocence in those words nearly broke Emily. How do you tell a child that tomorrow might not be better? That tomorrow might mean an eviction notice, another skipped meal, another night of pretending everything was okay. Emily picked up the phone, her reflection faint in the black edges of the screen. Her eyes were tired, ringed with shadows. The kind of tired that didn't just come from lack of sleep, but from years of fighting battles she was never meant to fight alone. She thought of her sister Claire. They hadn't spoken much lately. Claire had her own family, her own bills, her own worries. But still, if anyone would understand, it would be her. Emily tapped out the words slowly at first, then faster as her emotions surged. "Claire, I don't know what to do anymore. The rent's late again. Lily needs new shoes for school, and I don't even have enough left for groceries this week. I'm so ashamed to ask, but can you help us? Just a little. I promise I'll pay you back when I can. I'm scared, I feel like I'm failing her." Her finger hovered over the send button. For a moment, she hesitated, her pride flaring one last time. She hated asking for help, hated admitting she wasn't strong enough to carry it all. But the thought of Lily going hungry tomorrow was stronger than her pride. With a shaky breath, Emily hit send. The message zipped away into the night, disappearing into the digital void. Immediately, relief and dread washed over her in equal measure. Relief, because at least she had said the words out loud. Even if only through text. Dread, because what if Claire couldn't help? What if she judged her? What if this was the final straw that made her sister see her as the failure Emily already believed herself to be? She set the phone down and buried her face in her hands. Minutes crawled by, then half an hour, then an hour. The phone stayed silent, no buzz, no reply, just the endless hum of the refrigerator, the creak of pipes in the walls, and the hollow thud of Emily's own heartbeat. Her mind began to spiral. Maybe Claire was asleep. Maybe she was ignoring her. Maybe she was just tired of bailing Emily out. The possibilities churned through her, each one heavier than the last. Finally, unable to sit still, Emily stood and wandered to the window. She pulled back the threadbare curtain, and looked out at the street below. A cold wind rattled the trees, carrying scraps of paper down the cracked sidewalk. Across the street, she could see the warm glow of other people's apartments. Families laughing over late dinners. Couples curled up on couches, lives that seemed so impossibly far from hers. Emily clasped her forehead to the glass and whispered to the night, "Please, just give me a break. Just one." Her phone buzzed suddenly. Her heart leapt. She rushed back to the table and grabbed it, expecting her sister's familiar words. But the screen didn't show Claire's name. It showed an unfamiliar number. A stranger. Confusion rippled through her. She opened the message. It was blank, just the little gray speech bubble with no words yet. Whoever this was, they were typing. Her stomach twisted. In that instant, Emily's mind pieced it together. Her trembling fingers. Her exhausted state. She must have sent the message to the wrong number. Not to Claire. Not to anyone she knew. A stranger had just received the most vulnerable, desperate words she had ever typed. Her face burned with humiliation. She wished she could claw the words back, erase them, pretend they had never existed. She considered blocking the number, throwing her phone across the room, pretending it never happened. but she couldn't move. She just stared at the screen paralyzed, waiting to see what this unknown person would say. But no reply came. The typing bubble vanished. The screen went still again. Emily sat there for a long time, her chest tight with embarrassment. Finally, she placed the phone face down and whispered, "I'm such an idiot." She stood, forcing herself to move on autopilot, wash the one plate left in the sink, straighten the bills into a neat pile, check on Lily again. Anything to distract herself from the mistake that gnawed at her gut. By the time she crawled into bed, exhaustion dragged at her, but sleep wouldn't come. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the words she had sent. Her deepest fears, her failures, her shame, all now in the hands of a stranger. And yet, beneath the embarrassment, a small flickering thought lingered in her chest. What if, somehow, this message had gone exactly where it was meant to? She pushed the thought away, convincing herself it was nothing. Just a mistake. Tomorrow would be harder than today, and she needed rest to face it. But deep down, in the quiet she tried so hard to ignore. Emily couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to change. The morning sun crept reluctantly through the thin curtains, spilling a pale light across Emily's bedroom. She lay there for a few seconds after her alarm went off, staring at the ceiling, dreading the day. Her body ached from another restless night. Sleep had come in fleeting bursts, broken by worry and the memory of the message she had sent to the wrong number. She reached for her phone. The screen was blank, no replies, no explanations, just silence, a bitter knot twisted in her stomach. She wanted to believe the stranger had simply ignored the message, dismissed it as spam or a wrong number. That would have been the simplest outcome. But another part of her, an anxious, knowing part, feared they might be out there somewhere, laughing at her desperation, screenshotting her words, sharing them with others. Emily pushed the thought aside. She had bigger problems than what a stranger thought of her. By the time she managed to get Lily ready for school, and walked her to the bus stop, Emily was already late for her morning shift at the diner. She plastered on a practiced smile, the kind that hid her exhaustion, and told Lily, "Have a wonderful day, sweetheart. I love you." Lily grinned, her ponytail bouncing as she climbed onto the bus. "Love you too, Mommy." Emily waved until the bus disappeared around the corner. Then her smile fell, and the heaviness returned. The diner was busier than usual that morning. The clatter of dishes, the hiss of the coffee machine, the chorus of voices calling orders, it was chaos. But Emily didn't mind. Work kept her hands busy, and when her hands were busy, her mind couldn't wander back to that message. Still, the silence of her phone haunted her. She slipped it out of her apron pocket between tables, checking for new notifications. Nothing, always nothing. She sighed, tucked it away, and forced herself to move. The hours blurred together. By the time her shift ended, her feet throbbed and her back ached, but she was grateful for the small stack of tips in her pocket. It wasn't enough. It was never enough. But it was something. When she finally arrived home that evening, Lily was sitting cross-legged on the floor with crayons spread around her. She looked up and beamed. "I drew you a picture, Mommy." Emily knelt down and examined the drawing. It was of the two of them, holding hands beneath a big yellow sun, their smiles stretched wide. Above their heads, Lily had scribbled in big, uneven letters, "Me if Mommy happy." Emily's throat tightened. She kissed her daughter's forehead. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. I love it." Dinner was simple that night. Scrambled eggs and toast, but Lily ate happily, chattering about her day. Emily listened, nodding and laughing where she could, her heart aching with both pride and guilt. Lily deserved so much more than this. After bedtime stories and hugs, Emily tucked her daughter in and turned off the light. She lingered at the doorway, watching Lily drift into dreams, before retreating to the kitchen. That's when the knock came. It was sharp, sudden, and unexpected. Emily froze, her heart leaping into her throat. No one ever visited her unannounced. She had no friends nearby, no neighbors who checked in, no reason for anyone to be knocking on her door at this hour. She waited, holding her breath. Maybe it was just someone at the wrong apartment. Then came another knock, firm, deliberate, her pulse raced, fear prickled across her skin. Slowly, she stepped closer to the door, her bare feet silent against the worn linoleum. She pressed her ear against the cool wood. On the other side she could hear breathing. Someone was definitely there. Her mind scrambled through possibilities. The landlord. No, he usually left notes. A neighbor. But none of them ever bothered with her. A stranger. The thought made her stomach churn. Gathering courage, she called out softly, "Who is it?" There was a pause. Then a calm, deep voice answered, "Emily." Her blood ran cold. Whoever this was, they knew her name. Her hand shook as she tightened her grip on the doorknob. "Who's asking?" she said, her voice barely more than a whisper. Another pause. Then the voice said, "My name is Daniel. I think you sent me a message last night." Emily's breath caught. Her mind reeled. The wrong number, the desperate text, the silence that followed. And now this. Her knees threatened to give way. "What?" she managed to say, her voice trembling. "I'm sorry to show up like this." The man continued gently. "But your words, they stayed with me. I needed to know if you were all right." Emily's throat tightened. A stranger had come to her door because of her text. She didn't know whether to be terrified or relieved. Her instinct screamed at her to send him away, to protect Lily, to lock the door and pretend no one was home. But something in his voice, steady, sincere, almost tender, pulled at her. She swallowed hard, her mind a storm of fear and curiosity. With shaking hands, she unlatched the chain and cracked the door open just enough to see. Standing in the hallway was a man in his late 30s. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a charcoal suit that looked far too expensive for this rundown building. His expression wasn't one of arrogance or intrusion, but of concern. His eyes, clear, piercing blue, met hers with a quiet intensity that made her chest ache. Emily's first thought was disbelief. What was a man like this doing here? What did he want from her? She tightened her grip on the door. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you come here?" Daniel held her gaze. "Because I couldn't just ignore it. Because no one should feel the way you sounded in that message. You don't know me. And I don't know you, but I had to come." Her heart pounded so loudly she thought he might hear it. She wanted to slam the door shut. She wanted to demand answers. But she also wanted, desperately, to believe that maybe, just maybe, someone had heard her cry for help. The silence stretched between them, heavy with all the things she couldn't say. Finally, Emily whispered. Almost to herself, "This has to be a mistake." But deep inside she knew it wasn't. Emily's fingers tightened on the edge of the door, her pulse hammering in her ears. The hallway light flickered, casting Daniel's face in shifting shadows. Everything about him seemed out of place, his polished shoes, his tailored suit, the quiet confidence in the way he stood there. He looked like a man who belonged in penthouses, not in the crumbling hallways of her apartment building, and yet here he was, at her door saying her name. "I know this is strange," Daniel said softly, his tone careful, almost apologetic. I couldn't stop thinking about your message. I wanted to see if you were all right." Emily swallowed hard, her throat dry. Part of her wanted to laugh, bitterly, painfully. No, she wasn't all right. She was barely keeping her head above water. But how could she admit that to a stranger? Another part of her wanted to slam the door shut, lock every bolt, and forget this ever happened. Instead, she hesitated. Caught in the gravity of his eyes. They weren't cold or prying, they carried something she hadn't seen in a long time. Concern. Genuine concern. Her voice trembled when she finally spoke. "You shouldn't be here." "I know," Daniel admitted. "And I'm sorry for intruding. I didn't want to ignore you. Not when you sounded so alone." The word alone landed heavily in her chest. Alone, that was exactly what she was. Even when surrounded by people at the diner, even when holding Lily's small hand, Emily had carried her struggles silently, as if locked inside an invisible cage. Hearing it spoken aloud by someone else made her feel exposed, fragile. "Please," she whispered, almost to herself, "just go." Daniel didn't move immediately. He studied her, but not in the way others did when they saw her tired eyes or the worn clothes she wore to work. His gaze wasn't judgmental. It was searching, steady, almost protective. "I'll go," he said at last, his voice low. "But before I do, just know this. You're not invisible. Someone saw your words, and they mattered." The sincerity in his tone caught her off guard. Emily's grip on the door faltered. Against her better judgment. She pulled it open a little wider. Enough to reveal the tired lines of her face, the faded paint of the apartment behind her. Enough to let him see the truth of her life. Daniel didn't flinch. He didn't look past her with pity or discomfort. His eyes stayed on hers, steady and grounding. "Why?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Why would you even care?" Daniel exhaled slowly, as if choosing his words carefully. "Because I know what it's like to feel trapped. To feel like no matter how hard you fight, life keeps knocking you down. And I know what it's like to wish, just once, that someone would notice." Emily blinked. She hadn't expected that. From a man who looked like he had never known struggle a day in his life. The admission felt impossible. And yet, his tone carried no arrogance, no performance. Just quiet truth. The hallway fell silent. Emily's heart warred with her mind. Everything screamed at her not to trust him. Not to let him in. But another voice, the voice she often silenced, whispered that just maybe, this was a moment she shouldn't turn away. Her eyes flicked toward the bedroom door, where Lily slept soundly, unaware of the man standing just feet away. Protective instinct surged through her. She straightened her shoulders. "I don't let strangers in," she said firmly, though her voice wavered. Daniel nodded, as if he understood completely. "That's smart. You don't have to. I don't want to scare you, Emily. I just..." He hesitated, then reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card. He held it out toward her, palm open, no pressure. "This is me, my number, my office, my home. If you ever need help, any kind of help, call me. That's all." Emily's eyes darted to the card. The name embossed in gold letters read Daniel Carter. Beneath it, a company logo she vaguely recognized from billboards downtown. Her stomach twisted. She knew this name. She had seen it in news articles about real estate empires and charity foundations. Daniel Carter wasn't just some man in a suit. He was a millionaire. Her breath caught. Her instinct screamed louder now. People like him didn't show up at the doors of women like her. Not without wanting something in return. She shook her head, stepping back. "I don't want charity." Daniel's expression softened. "It's not charity. It's humanity. Everyone needs a hand sometimes. Even me." Something in his tone disarmed her again, chipping away at the walls she had built so carefully. Her fingers trembled as she reached out and took the card. She meant only to accept it quickly, to end this strange encounter. But when her hand brushed his, a warmth spread through her, startling her. She pulled back instantly, tucking the card against her chest as if it might burn. Daniel gave a small, almost sad smile. "I'll go now. But remember, you don't have to go through this alone." With that, he turned and walked down the hallway, his footsteps echoing softly against the worn tiles. Emily stood frozen in the doorway, staring after him until he disappeared around the corner. When she finally closed the door, she leaned her back against it, her chest heaving. She looked down at the card in her hand, the gold letters catching the faint light of her apartment. Her mind screamed that this was absurd. That he was too good to be true. That nothing about this made sense. But her heart, tired, bruised, and aching, whispered something different. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something she had prayed for in silence. For the first time in years, Emily allowed herself to feel a flicker of something she had long buried. Hope. The next few days passed in a haze for Emily. She went through the motions, waking Lily for school, serving endless cups of coffee at the diner, folding laundry in the quiet hours of the night. But her thoughts kept drifting back to the knock on her door. To the man in the hallway with eyes that looked at her not with pity, but with recognition. Daniel Carter. The name on the card burned in her mind. She had tucked it into the drawer beside her bed, telling herself she wouldn't use it. She couldn't. Men like him lived in a different world, one with marble floors and glass towers, not cracked sidewalks and overdue bills. Still, she found herself opening the drawer more than once, just staring at the gold embossed letters, running her thumb over the smooth paper. It was Lily who broke the silence first. One evening, as they sat at the table eating the last of the peanut butter with crackers, Lily tilted her head and asked, "Mommy, why do you look sad even when you're smiling?" The question sliced through Emily's heart. She forced another smile and reached over to tuck a strand of hair behind her daughter's ear. "I'm just tired, sweetheart. That's all." But that night, after Lily had fallen asleep, Emily sat at the table in the dim kitchen light, staring at the business card. Her pride screamed at her not to call. Yet beneath the pride was a desperate voice, whispering what if he meant it? What if he really wants to help? With trembling fingers, she picked up her phone. She didn't even have to type. His number was already on the card. For several minutes, she sat frozen, torn between fear and hope. Finally, she whispered to herself, "For Lily," and dialed. The phone rang once, twice, then a calm familiar voice answered. "Emily." She nearly hung up then and there. I shouldn't be calling." She stammered. "I'm sorry Don't apologize." Daniel interrupted gently. "I was hoping you would. Tell me what's happening." And somehow, in the quiet safety of his voice, Emily did. The words spilled out, broken and halting at first, then in overdue rent. The empty fridge. The endless double shifts. The constant fear of failing her daughter. She braced herself for silence, or worse, judgment. But Daniel only said, "Thank you for trusting me." His voice carried no hint of condescension, only sincerity. "Can I come by tomorrow?" Emily's breath caught. The idea of him in her apartment again sent a shiver of both dread and relief through her. "Why?" "Because talking on the phone isn't enough." Daniel replied. "You don't have to say yes. But if you let me. I want to help." Against every instinct, Emily found herself whispering, "All right." The next evening, there was another knock on her door. Emily's stomach tightened as she opened it to find Daniel standing there again. This time carrying 2 grocery bags filled to the brim. Her cheeks flushed with shame. "You shouldn't have." "I wanted to," Daniel said simply, stepping inside as she reluctantly moved aside. He placed the bags on the counter, pulling out fresh fruit, vegetables, milk, bread, pasta. Food she hadn't been able to afford in weeks. Emily's throat closed up. "I can't pay you back for this." Daniel looked at her gently. "This isn't about paying me back. This is about making sure you and your daughter eat." But tears stung her eyes, but she blinked them away, refusing to break in front of him. Instead, she busied herself unpacking the groceries, though her hands shook with every item. As she worked, Daniel glanced around the small apartment. His gaze landed on Lily's drawings taped to the fridge, bright suns, smiling stick figures, hearts with "Mommy Flamme" scribbled in crayon. His expression softened. "You've built a home here," he said quietly. Emily gave a bitter laugh. "If you can call it that. The roof leaks in the winter. The heater barely works, and I'm always one step away from losing it. Some home." Daniel stepped closer, his voice steady. "It's a home because of you. Because you keep fighting, no matter how hard it gets. That's what makes you remarkable, Emily." The words caught her off guard. No one had ever said anything like that to her before. Most people saw her as a burden, a charity case, a woman defined by her struggles. But Daniel, he saw her strength. Before she could respond, Lily came bounding out of her room, her face lighting up when she saw the bags of food.
"Mommy, apples!"
she cried, grabbing one with both hands. Daniel crouched down to her level, smiling. "You must be Lily. I've heard a lot about you." Lily looked at him curiously, then grinned. "Are you Mommy's friend?" Emily's cheeks burned. She opened her mouth to deflect, but Daniel answered first. "I'd like to be," he said warmly. Something in his tone made Emily's chest tighten. Over the next hour, Daniel stayed. He helped Emily cook a proper dinner, pasta with sauce, garlic bread, fresh salad. The smell filled the apartment, rich and comforting, and Emily realized she hadn't felt this warmth in years. They ate together. Laughter echoing in the small kitchen as Lily told Daniel about her drawings, her favorite books, her dream of being a teacher someday. Daniel listened with genuine interest, his eyes crinkling as he smiled. For once, Emily didn't feel like a failure. She felt normal, like part of a family. When dinner ended and Lily drifted off to bed, Emily and Daniel sat in the quiet kitchen. Emily fidgeted with her hands, her pride still a restless shadow. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice low. Daniel leaned back, his expression thoughtful. "Because I can. And because I remember what it feels like to need someone and have no one there. I promised myself, if I ever had the means, I'd never turn away from someone in that place." His words settled into her like a balm. Still, Emily shook her head. "I'm not looking for." His gaze was steady. "Good. Because I'm not here to save you. I'm here to remind you that you're not alone." For a long moment, Emily said nothing. Her chest ached with the weight of emotions she had locked away for too long, fear, shame, but also gratitude. She realized then that Daniel wasn't just offering money or food. He was offering dignity. Respect. A reminder that she still mattered, and for the first time in years, Emily allowed herself to believe it. The weeks that followed felt different, almost unreal, to Emily. For years, her life had been a cycle of exhaustion. Working, worrying, surviving. But now, there was something new woven into her days. Hope. Daniel didn't disappear after that first evening of groceries and shared laughter. He checked in, not in an overwhelming or intrusive way, but with gentle consistency. Sometimes it was a quick phone call to ask how her shift had gone. Other times, it was dropping by with a bag of groceries or helping Lily with her math homework while Emily cleaned up from dinner. At first, Emily fought it. Her pride flared every time he offered to help, and she bristled at the idea of leaning on anyone. But Daniel had a way of easing her defenses. He never made her feel like a burden. Instead, he treated her like an equal. Like someone whose strength he admired rather than pitied. One chilly Saturday morning, Emily found herself walking through the park with Daniel and Lily. The trees had shed their leaves, leaving the ground covered in shades of amber and gold. Lily skipped ahead, her laughter ringing through the crisp air, as she collected the prettiest leaves to press into her notebook later. Emily pulled her coat tighter around herself, sneaking a glance at Daniel as he walked beside her. He looked out of place in his expensive wool coat and polished shoes. Yet there was an ease about him when he bent down to admire Lily's treasures. Or when he carried her on his shoulders so she could see the world from up high. It made Emily's chest ache in a way she couldn't quite name. "Why do you keep doing this?" she asked quietly when Lily ran ahead again. "Spending your time here. With us. You could be anywhere." Daniel turned to her, his expression soft. "Because this is where I want to be." Her heart stuttered at his words. She looked away, not ready to face the warmth that spread through her chest. As the weeks turned into a month, Emily began to notice changes, not just in her circumstances, but in herself. The fridge wasn't empty anymore. The landlord wasn't banging on her door. Lily's smile grew brighter each day, no longer shadowed by the worry she tried so hard to hide from her daughter. But it wasn't just about the material changes. Emily felt lighter, as if the crushing weight she had carried alone for so long was finally lifting. She laughed more. She slept better. She even caught herself humming while washing dishes. Something she hadn't done since before Lily was born. One evening, after another long shift at the diner, Emily came home to find Lily and Daniel sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by crayons and markers. They were working on a giant poster that read, "Mommy is the best," in bold, colorful letters. Tears pricked Emily's eyes as she leaned against the doorway, watching them. Daniel glanced up, his smile warm. "We wanted to surprise you." Emily pressed a hand to her chest, overwhelmed. "You already have," she whispered. But even as joy crept back into her life, Emily wrestled with doubt. One night, long after Lily had fallen asleep, she sat at the kitchen table with Daniel. The soft glow of the lamp lit the room as she finally voiced the question that had gnawed at her. "Why me?" Her voice trembled. "Out of everyone, out of all the people you could help, why answer my message? Why stay?" Daniel was quiet for a long moment. He leaned forward, resting his hands on the table. "Because your words reminded me of my mother." Danley blinked, surprised. "She was a single mom too," Daniel continued, his voice low, reflective. "She worked 3 jobs to keep us fed. I watched her struggle. Watched her break herself just to give me a chance. And even then, she felt like she wasn't enough." His eyes met hers, glistening. "But to me, she was everything. She was the strongest person I ever knew. And when I read your message, I heard her voice in yours. I couldn't ignore that." Emily's throat closed. She pressed her hand over her mouth to stifle the sob that rose unbidden. No one had ever compared her to strength before. No one had ever seen her like that. Daniel reached across the table, his hand brushing hers. "You're doing more than surviving, Emily. You're showing your daughter what resilience looks like. You're teaching her what love looks like. Don't ever think you're failing her." Tears streamed freely down her cheeks. For the first time in years, Emily let someone see her break. And for the first time in years, she realized she wasn't breaking alone. The months that followed felt like stepping into a new chapter. With Daniel's encouragement, Emily started taking night classes in bookkeeping. Something she had always wanted to pursue but never dared. She still worked at the diner, but now, for the first time, she allowed herself to dream beyond it. Lily thrived too. With new shoes for school, a backpack that wasn't falling apart, and the security of knowing she'd always have dinner on the table, she blossomed in confidence. Her teachers praised her enthusiasm, her creativity, her determination. And Daniel was there for it all: school recitals, late-night homework sessions, Saturday trips to the library. He didn't just give, he shared. He became part of their rhythm. Part of their little world. Emily often caught herself watching him when he laughed with Lily, or when he carried heavy groceries into the apartment without a word, or when he looked at her with that steady, unwavering gaze. Each time, her heart whispered the same truth: this was no longer a man she had met by accident. This was someone she couldn't imagine her life without. One spring evening, nearly 6 months after that desperate text, Emily stood in the doorway of her apartment. The sunset painted the sky in streaks of orange and pink. Daniel stood across from her, his hands in his pockets, his expression thoughtful. "I still think about that night," Emily said softly. "When I sent that message to the wrong number." Daniel smiled gently. "It wasn't the wrong number." Emily tilted her head, her brow furrowing. His eyes held hers with quiet certainty. "It was the right one. It just took a little faith to see it." Emotion swelled in Emily's chest, too big to contain. She stepped forward, her voice breaking. "Thank you for everything." Daniel shook his head. "Don't thank me. Just promise me one thing." "What's that?" "Never stop believing that you deserve more than just surviving. You and Lily, you deserve the world." Her vision blurred with tears, but this time, they weren't tears of despair, they were tears of gratitude, of hope, of love. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Emily realized her life had shifted in ways she never thought possible. The message she thought had been a mistake had become the greatest blessing of her life. And in that moment, she knew sometimes, the wrong message finds exactly the right person.